Hey everyone, welcome to our next episode of the Brave Entrepreneur Podcast. I am here live with our Shawn McBride, and we are going to have an amazing conversation today about what he does in the world and how he helps business owners. And he is as you can see on the wall behind him, he's got amazing accolades and accomplishments, and I'm just really excited to be here with you guys. So join us for the next 30 minutes or so, and we're going to give you the underbelly of his business and what it takes to be brave in his world and what that means to him. So hi, Shawn. Welcome to the
Thank
show.
you.
How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. Looking forward to this conversation. This is a great topic, and I think something that people really need to dive into, because entrepreneurship, as we've talked about, is not an easy thing.
Yeah, it really is a choice. It's a crazy choice sometimes,
Yes.
But it has so many rewards and benefits at the same time. And you're right. It's not always the easy choice. But I think you are on the planet to make things a little easier as a CPA and a business strategist and an attorney. I really respect that. I think it's great that you've got so many tools in your tool belt that you can really support people around, because I think there's a missing link sometimes with people building businesses or creating businesses or setting them up even to make sure that they're protected and they're doing it the right way. So tell us a little bit more about why you do what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think as my world has evolved, I started out in some of the largest law firms in the country, really working with big companies on putting together plans. And eventually I jumped out on my own, started my own business approximately 5 years ago now. And when I did that, I started working with, more regular clients, normal people that are running businesses, family members, partners coming together to run stuff. And the one thing that became inherent and we saw is a lot of people have risk spots or opportunities that they're not seeing. So, that's been the theme of this journey as I've built this business and worked more and more with people and helped them put together businesses. Yeah, it's great to just put together a partnership agreement. And a lot of people think, just grab a form off the internet. There's a lot more to it, and there's ways to really make these things work.
Right.
And that's what I work with people on, is how can we make a good plan? How can we make sure we're controlling our blind spots, make sure we're capitalizing on our opportunities to grow the business? Because so often, we jump in, we see one opportunity, we're headed one direction, we're doing one thing, but we might be missing something big that's going to come up and snag them. So we fix those issues as we go and make better business plans that work better.
Yeah, I love that. I really do. It's interesting that you and I are having this conversation today, because I just recently got back from a working retreat in Hawaii, which is awesome. Right. Everyone should do it. And it was actually a working retreat with some new partners of mine. Hence the partnership. So, and it's interesting because that's what we were talking through, and of course we're very smart, knowing that we have to meet with an attorney and, and figure out how to make sure that we're all protected, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just a new business venture that, I'm stepping into as a co-founder of, because I am that serial entrepreneur, but it's just, the fact that we're having this conversation is pretty ironic, considering I just came off of that trip, and how important it is. And so I think it's really powerful that you've got such a circle of influence when it comes to helping people set things up. So it's really powerful.
And I love partnerships. A lot of people are scared of them, but they are very powerful. You can do a lot more working as a team and working collectively. You just have to do it the right way, and when we work with people, we work with how do we do it effectively, where we're all gaining economic value, but we're also making sure that regardless of what happens in the future, everybody's going to get paid for their work.
Yeah, great. And I'm glad you said that. I've had a couple partnerships where it didn't work so well. And I've learned a lot, but I think it can also be very powerful if you do it right, so. I second that. And so tell us a little bit about your story. You said you started the more of the coaching, consulting, speaking business 5 years ago, but clearly you've been doing other things. What's brought you to this moment? What really transpired to make you step into kind of that direction, I guess?
It's been an evolution. When I was in the largest, I worked for some of the largest law firms, 3 different very large law firms early in my career, spent approximately 10 years doing that. And, I decided I really wasn't able to interact with all the clients the way I wanted to interact. There was a missing piece there. And that's what initially started me to open this business. I wanted to be able to work with those medium-sized businesses, those growing businesses where the big law firms really just, they didn't care. They wanted their corporate type business.
Small fish.
Big stuff. Yeah, they didn't want to deal with small, but there were so many people out there that needed help on their business. And that's really what initially got me going. I saw a market opportunity, underserviced segment, and jumped out there. And then it's been listening to the market and evolving because, the theme has become simplification, making things more usable for my clients and my audiences. Right. And as the journey has continued, as I've revised my business over these years, we keep simplifying things and breaking things down, and it's gone beyond just the mere legal work, but taking this into a planning scenario. How do we get ahead of these issues?
Right.
Not just document things on the back end, but how do we build an effective partnership? How do we say yes or no to partners? How do we know who we should be partnering with? And how do we all get on the same page before we start writing that partnership agreement and avoid a lot of the issues before they happen? So, and then family businesses, what do we do with that wealth for running that company if mom or dad isn't there anymore to run the business? Where does the business go? How does it continue? How do we make sure the money's still there for the children or the other heirs? All of these kind of lessons, from interacting with my clients, and then taking and putting it in a simple way that business owners understand. Because, I don't know what your experience has been with lawyers, but a lot of people have the experience of the lawyer just doesn't make sense, or they provide a bunch of long-winded documents that, nobody wants to read.
Right. And then when you read it, you don't get it. So
exactly.
It doesn't matter. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We break things down into components and pieces and tools that people can actually use and apply.
That's awesome. And do you primarily work with partnerships or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Partnerships is one of my big categories, though, because a lot of times people will call me, and they're particularly second and third time around partners are a very common category for me. A lot of times first time people do partnerships, unfortunately, they think that, just fear mongering and all these hypothetical things that could go wrong in a partnership. And for whatever reason, a lot of people got to go out there and stick their hand on the stove that one time, get burned, and find out that, oh yeah, I should have documented who gets what, who does what in the partnership, what happens if we get in a disagreement. Second and third time partners, they show up at my office and they're like, look, I'm going into a partnership. I think we have a great opportunity to make money, but I also want to make sure we have a clear understanding that we all each understand what we're doing, and we're going to make sure that after I put 2 or 3 years and whatever amount of capital in this business, I want to make sure I get paid. So the second and third time come to me a lot. And the other big category is the family businesses. They'll show up at my door and they'll say, I'm starting to get to that age where, the person running the business might be getting to that age where they start to realize that, that there may be a day when they're not running the business, and they're like, how do I protect this business to keep it running smoothly if I'm not there?
Yeah.
How do I pass this wealth to my children or my spouse in an orderly way so that, and I've had friends and I've had companies I've worked with, unfortunately, have been in a situation where somebody has died that was running the company. And then everybody's in there suddenly, like digging through files, trying to figure out what's going in emails, calling customers. And it's just a train wreck. And that's the last thing you want to do to your family if you die.
Yeah.
Put them in a situation where they've got to try to reconstruct everything. So now they've got the stress of the funeral, and immediately after, they're in there trying to make payroll and figure out what's going on and sort out the business. And I've had friends that have been in that situation. It's not pretty. So we do things to avoid those types of situations before they happen.
Got it. I love it. And like I said, just coming off of this kind of retreat that I was on, those are exactly the questions and the conversations we were having. And we're all second time around partners.
So you're a little bit wiser to it, and things happen,
Yeah.
Four Ds, I'll just quickly share with the audience.
Oh yeah. Share your Ds.
Any agreement, and this applies particularly to partnership agreements, but any business agreement you're getting into, you want to test for 4 Ds. Death, what happens if somebody dies? Right. Disability, what if somebody's disabled, which can put even more stress on the business than a death. A divorce, what if somebody gets a divorce? And a lot of times in many states, they'll just divide that partnership interest among the ex-spouses. So you might have some random stranger coming into your partnership who's an ex-spouse of one of your partners. You know, you
Right.
really don't want that. And then disagreement. And a lot of people don't want to talk about disagreement because usually when you're forming the business, it's a period of a lot of agreement and alignment. But you don't know what life's going to bring in the future. You don't know what opportunities are going to come. So we want to build stuff into the agreements to make sure that if things start to go astray in the future, we have a plan.
Yeah. It's so good. You know, I love it broken down very simply as the 4Ds, because
Yep.
and the truth is, I think the benefit of working with someone like you is that we don't want to look at those things. Right.
Right.
So I'm sure your expertise and kind of just factual, like, let's just, you know, like take the emotion out of it. Right. And make it just something that is, you know, part of the course. I think is really powerful, because it's, you know, who wants to do wills and you know, funeral arrangements and all those things.
Right.
And, you know, and let alone think of those things when you sign up for a partnership or, you know, start a business. So it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, this is big because, you know, you're putting all this time and energy into this business. Hopefully it appreciates to be a significant asset. The last thing you want to do, and I've had businesses in this situation, you know, a divorce happens, and now suddenly an ex-spouse is showing up to run the business, and the other partners are sitting there scratching their head saying, you know, we didn't want to do business with this spouse here. You know, we don't know this person. You know, you're putting too much time and energy into this. So I really break it down and make it simple for people to get ahead of these issues before they become big. It takes conversations. It does take work, but you do a little bit of work now and you save some major issues in the future.
Yeah. And it keeps it clean. It keeps it easy to transition, whatever those transitions might be. So very good. So I want to just shift the conversation a little bit back to your journey as an entrepreneur and your path and all of that. And so, you know, for the sake of this show, what would you say has been maybe the most turbulent time along this journey, and what would be considered your bravest moment?
Yeah, you know, I think for me, it was, you know, 2015, 2016 were some reinvention years. So I came out of the box when I first started this business. Built an initial client base. People knew who I was. They came to me for attorney work, and we got going, and it grew, and we were doing good. But, you know, it was one of these lack of work-life balance things. You know, the system was not built to allow me to take time away, or to be creative, or to reinvent the business, or to just enjoy life. So I hit a period where I needed to rework the initial plan. So I built a plan for a while. It worked, but it had to be reworked. And the rework was hard because it required not just revisiting the business plan, but revisiting how I do business top to bottom, and what I had been taught for 10 years in a large law firm, and what I had practiced for the first 2.5 years of my own business, 12 and a half years now of business, had to be completely reworked. And so it required, you know, reinventing my business model, reinventing myself, changing my skills, and really reworking the business top to bottom, while, you know, changing the client base out because some of the clients I had before didn't fit my new business model. You know, it was a full rework top to bottom. So, you know, that was it's been a long journey coming out of it now, and things are, you know, the new plan is working and doing what it's supposed to do. But, you know, the journey and the turbulence of reinventing the business halfway through, definitely challenging.
You know, that's interesting. You know, there's, you know, this year, actually in 2017, I did a little reinvention, you know, mainly a rebrand, and it's, I call this year the deconstruction year.
Yes.
Right? You have to kind of jackhammer the foundation that you think you've built for however long. And then, you know, and find and kind of fill in the cracks and reinvent, or like you said, or reconstruct it. And yet if it's in efforts to reach your ultimate goal, right, and really create the business and the lifestyle, something I love talking about with clients is business lifestyle by design, right?
Yes.
How do you want to do business, and what are your freedoms that you value? And so that's what I'm hearing a little bit, is just that conversation of wanting to do it in a way that you feel good about, and that you make space for what's important. And so how scared were you when you went through that?
Oh, it definitely was scary at different times. I mean, starting it out, you know, I think was an initial period of excitement, but like most entrepreneurial ventures, you know, things don't always happen immediately the way you envision them. It takes time to build it. So for me, there was a long period of, I know what I'm building, I know where I'm going, but the marketplace doesn't know yet. It took a while for them to respond. I recently, I was getting considered for a Business of the Year award, and when they came in to interview me, they're like, "Why were your revenues flat for a year?" And I said, "Well, let me tell you, we came in and we had to reinvent. So as clients are leaving, new clients are coming in, and so I had a lot of turmoil, and you didn't have this kind of just,
grow.
Everybody thinks, you're supposed to just have this straight upwards sloping curve, and very few businesses actually have that. So I had to take a flat year to reset and to reinvent where we were going.
Yeah.
And that takes nerve, because you get those questions. Why aren't your revenues up? Why are you here? And of course, you talk to other entrepreneurs and you read articles and all these other people. 20% growth, 40% growth.
Right. Inc. 500, right? It's like for 3 years, you're like this astronomical growth apparently to qualify.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's happened sometimes in spurts, and I've had, one of my clients, which was nice. I work with them on a lot of issues, and they, before me proceeding, they kind of had one of those, the hockey stick, so I watched them, and they laid the foundation, they worked with me when they were laying the foundation, and then the hockey stick happened. So, you see that if you do it right. But it takes a lot of nerve when you're in the middle of it to stick to your long-term plan. And I tell you, it was not easy at times to say, hey, I'm doing the right thing long-term, but boy, it's not feeling good short-term.
Yeah. I love that you're bringing this up. You're like speaking like what I just thought for the last month. You're speaking it out loud. And, cause I guess it's just always perfect how these shows come up, and the guests that show up, because there's a relatedness that I'm feeling for you. And I would gather there's people listening that, are going to feel the same way. And it's so true. I really want to anchor the fact that people need to get it, that it isn't always a straight path, and it isn't always, the hockey stick straight up and, you're done, the game's over. Right. And yet it's all in the size of, are you committed? Yes. Right? Are you committed to the long haul? Like, there's no quit in the game of entrepreneurship if you really want to play.
One of my future projects here, I've kind of been making notes. I've written a couple of books, and I've got, a couple in editing right now. But one of my books, more further out, a couple years out, is I want to do a book about people that have struggled before success. Yeah. And you'd be shocked, maybe you wouldn't be shocked, but, such a large percentage of the people that are big names in business that are bringing in tremendous revenues now, a lot of them struggled. Many of them were homeless at different points because it takes so long to get a business model perfected and to really take off. Right. But a lot of these people couldn't pay their basic bills. They were just trying to get by day to day while they were building this, but they kept building this. And then the other thing I keep seeing with a lot of entrepreneurs is a flashpoint. You go, and then someday you get that magic customer. Somebody sees you and they refer you to somebody. Something magical happens, and it's one of these, 20 years to an overnight success story that we always hear about. Yeah,
it's really 20 years sometimes. Yes. I love that. I think that's a well-deserved, conversation and book or whatever you make it into, because again, I think it's important for people to see the truth of what really happens, and and I don't think everybody's journey has to be the same, clearly. No. But I think there's sometimes this facade that goes on that it looks like it's all great and perfect and she's got it all figured out. She shouldn't have any cash flow problems. And I'm like, like you and I were just talking before the show, and I'm like, there's a difference between a net profit and cash flow, right?
Exactly.
And, like I'm profitable, but I'm like crunched on cash, I
just met with one of my most successful clients, and they're watching their revenue go up. Percentage growth is very nice, but this client was sitting there telling me, I'm making more money, revenue's going up, profits going up, but then I'm reinvesting in all these things for the future. So, while profit's good, cash flow is is tough for the client because they're building an even bigger future for themselves.
Yeah. And it's great to have people, like yourself and such that can discern that for people and
Yeah.
really help to set them up to win and be clear on the expectations of all that. Because
Right. Well, we put some.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
put some perspective around it and some realism, and understand that yes, it's not always every year you pull more cash out of the business. Some years are years where you're investing. So you may eventually have that year where you pull more cash out, but it goes in ebbs and flows, and like you say, it's rarely smooth. It doesn't just go in a straight line.
Yeah, it's a wavy process for sure. So tell me this, and everyone listening, what do you define brave as in your world?
I think the tough, brave part is really just facing the reality of the things you have to do. I mean, every day is bringing you challenges, and I think if you're going to be a business owner, you're going to be brave. You've got to face those challenges. You got to acknowledge what's there, and you've got to keep building and keep that focused on the future, even if you're not seeing it in the short term.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And so far, 100% batting average, nobody's definition's wrong, right? It is what you believe in. It is how you see it. And I think every perspective is right because, being brave is just part of the conversation, an entrepreneurship has, and you just call it something else, a lot of times. But it's a realistic and resilient perspective. I think, really being willing to stick it out and make the best of it. And so what would you say is your next brave? Like what's in front of you going, oh my God, I'm about to do this or pull the trigger or whatever.
I've got a number of new pieces, particularly in the online marketing. So as my world evolves, it's first more of a traditional legal practice, come to my office and we'll work with you on your issues.
Right.
Public speaking, which has been a new business to build on top of a business. And that business is starting to do very nice things.
Yeah.
But what I want to build next is an online presence. I want to have webinars and then online training and different products. And there's a lot of new pieces here. So, for me, that's another challenge to jump into a new segment of the world and to really figure out those pieces. So, for me, it's another reinvention. Thankfully, we've got a very nice core that's running well. Now we've got to bolt another piece onto it.
Yeah, I love that, because I think, it's like you look at everybody and they got this, it's so easy for them. And yet there's always the next uncomfortable zone, right? It's like, you're right. You've been doing business a certain way for a particular amount of time and it's worked and it's good. But there's other ways to connect with our markets and sometimes it's not what you're used to. And so it really pushes us into our, uncomfortable zone or what have you, and pushes our limits so that we can have something as far as a reward, right? And also the world is changing, right? How people are connecting, how people are engaging, and just the technology, of course, which I also think it's like a blessing and a curse. It's like and everything has its pros and cons, but I think it's such an opportunity for us to reach so many more people. And I was just telling you before the show, it's like the one reason I said, okay, it's time to do video and audio on these podcasts is because the market's changing. How people want to be engaged with is changing. And so I think it's brilliant that you're stepping into that. It is great. So
yeah, it's new and it's interesting, but it's it's another step, and it's not gonna it's gonna have some tough moments. I know it already.
Right? Yeah, you'll do it though. I get it. And so what would you say is for people listening, and maybe just a succinct 2 or 3 tips of some just practical advice that you would give them, not whether you want to speak to what you do for them or just how you would advise them to be brave in their business. What would you say?
Well, number one, you got to have a solid plan. I mean, you may not have to write that 100-page business plan at the beginning, but you really need to know where you're going. You need to involve other people, and so that's one thing I talk to a lot when I'm speaking or when I'm doing my blogs and other things is, how do you get other people involved in your plan to really make it work? And how do you get other people testing it? Because, multiple minds are better than one.
Right.
Don't be afraid to reach out and get other people. You're going to get conflicting advice. Ultimately you've got to make the decision, but you want to get multiple points of view so that you're picking up those uncovered risks or those hidden items. So you really want to think through it. in advance, and then use a formula. I've got one formula for building a business plan, that I work people through as part of my speeches, and you can find it on my blog. But, that's one methodology. But have a methodology to build a plan, get other people involved, and then start executing it, bringing in the right people at the right time. You're not going to know everything. You're going to have to hire some experts.
Yeah.
Choose wisely, get good people on your team, and keep evolving the business forward, because you're not going to be able to do it all. You got to pick your lane, get that value added, and let everybody else help you carry the ball from there.
Yeah, I love that. Very good practical advice and well-versed, because it's funny. I actually have kind of my methodology, I guess if you would call it. It's called the evolution of a brave master.
Okay.
So it's evolving. There's phases to business. There's the right time, like you said, the right time to pull the trigger. And you don't always have that perfectly figured out, but there's a sense of when should I do this versus should I be doing this over here? There's a strategy behind it. So
and there's a fine line between capitalizing on opportunities and chasing, squirrels. And you've got to figure that out over time of when am I really hitting a market evolution, or when do I have some new technology or new opportunity, versus when am I out there just chasing things unnecessarily? And you've got to really get a handle on that for you and your business.
Yeah, it's so good. I always call that looking at the input versus the impact. Right? Like how much time, money, and all that is the input going to take, and then what's the impact, and is it a long-term thing or something later, or is it now? So that you're not chasing squirrels. Exactly. So I love that, right? The shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
But this has been really great. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Kind of your journey and just what you've had to do to kind of reinvent. I think that's a really important conversation for people to hear, and how brave that is, and what it takes to step into that. Because sometimes it's absolutely necessary if you're wanting to really get somewhere. I thank you for sharing that and being open about that. And so I definitely want people to connect with you. You've got tons of knowledge and experience, and clearly, being the lawyer. And are you still, you said you still have your CPA as well?
I do. I have my CPA license. I don't really practice accounting per se, but I do, work with, it's an underlying piece of knowledge. So when people come to working on their business plans, I use it so I understand their financials. I understand where they're going and what they're trying to accomplish.
Which is great. Yeah, it's just all part of the knowledge base, which I love. So, so share with everyone, what's the best way they can connect with you?
Sure. I think the best is check me out at McBrideforBusiness.com. That's my website for my business strategy firm. You'll also see McBrideAttorneys.com, which is my law firm site. Both of them have blogs. One's more business management oriented. One's more attorney legal issue oriented. So resources are there for you. Free materials on both. McBride for Business has what would probably be great for a lot of people that are thinking about building their business. It's a business valuation checklist. And you can use that to think about what the value of your business is, where the value of business is going. It will help you spot your weak spots. It will help you think about what you're doing for the future. It will help you think about maximizing that value over time, because somewhere or another you're going to exit your business. You're either going to sell it at some point when you're thinking about retiring and moving on to the next business, or you're going to leave this world and you want to leave the most valuable possible business to whoever's going to succeed you. So
awesome. And that's on your McBrideforBusiness.com?
Yep. And it's FOR, McBride, like my last name, FOR Business.
Business.com. Yeah, great. And we'll put that in the show notes as well, so they can click to it. So absolutely, everyone listening, take advantage of that evaluation. I think it's really insightful. I know Shawn and I agree. Look at the numbers. And I call it love thy numbers, right? Look at the numbers, know the facts, right? And be informed, so that you can actually grow a business that's sustainable. So thank you so much for being here. This has been extremely insightful, not only for me, and now I can see all the things that my brain was thinking just a month ago. It makes a lot of sense why I was thinking.
Good.
So yeah, it was great. And I just really appreciate your story and and congratulations on, you know, stepping into your brave and reinvention, and, you know, it's really going to pay off. I can assure you. So it's great.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. And I hope some audience members got some nuggets, and I hope that they can use that to grow their business to the next level and do the things they really want to do in life. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, right? Is to
totally
fuel life and help others and build something bigger.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I agree with you. And thank you so much, Shawn. And thank you, everyone listening. Until next time, let's go get our brave on. See you then.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.